And without further ado, on to the main show.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Can you guys hear me okay? Thumbs up if you
Yes.
can. Excellent. Well, my name's Jason Robertshaw, and we're coming to you from MOTE Marine Laboratory, and I'm joined by my wonderful colleague Ross.
How's it going, everyone? I'm very excited to be connecting with all of you.
Yeah, and today we're going to bring you a presentation on our virtual learning programs here at MOTE Marine Laboratory. And we'll put these slides up again at the end, but this is who you're talking to. That's me in the middle. I'm the program manager for virtual learning. Ross is our stellar host and educator for these what we call C-Track programs. And if you ever want to get to the person that's really in charge, that's our boss, Ali Bussey. But I also want to introduce this fella. Does anyone, you can type into the chat or just nod or just say something, does anyone recognize this gentleman? Might be a little bit surprised if you do. This is kind of the father of distance learning here at MOTE Marine Laboratory. His name's Dr. Robert Ballard, and he is famous for having discovered the RMS Titanic back in the 1980s. He's a professor of oceanography at the University of Rhode Island, underwater archaeologist, all-around famous guy, and he found the resting place of the Titanic, and it was a huge media event, and he got such an outpouring of interest from teachers and students that it inspired him to start a distance learning program that he called the Jason Project. Has nothing to do with me. It was named after the Argonaut of myth and legend, and that's what he named his remotely operated vehicle, the Jason. And he would go off to these far-flung locations like the Galapagos, the Hawaiian Islands, Belize, the Mediterranean, and beam back to various pin sites his adventures via satellite. And we would truck out students from, we'd bus in students from all over Sarasota County and Manatee County, where we're located, into our aquarium, and they'd have a full day of interactive distance learning with Dr. Ballard and his colleagues. That got us started all the way back in 1989, if you can believe it. With distance learning, and inspired our management to start looking at doing not only some demonstration projects with Nickelodeon and some of the other groups like MCI WorldCom, if you remember them, but also eventually to begin our own program, in-house program for distance learning. And we called it C-Track. And we connected with our local school systems for a number of years, installed all kinds of gear into the school systems through a federal grant called the Technology Literacy Challenge Fund grant, and allowed us to bring our subject matter experts, our scientists, directly to the students and teachers using old-fashioned high-speed phone lines, what we called ISDN phone lines back in the day. And that continued through the early parts of the 2000s until this thing we call the internet came along. And that really helped out with our long-distance phone bills, and also allowed us to reach even more teachers and students, not only in Florida, but around the country and also the world. And eventually we made it all the way into, from standard definition into high definition. And that's kind of the space, and here, Ross, I'm going to pull back out. This is the space that we're in now, our high definition studio. And it was quite a journey to get to that, if you remember those days. And this is what it looks like with my perspective. And so here I am in the control room, delivering programs to students. And this program that we call C-Track has been honored and awarded many times by the Center for Interactive Learning and Collaboration for its outstanding merits. And the merits are based on feedback directly from teachers and their evaluations. And they've been very complimentary to us in our efforts, and have awarded us numerous pinnacle awards over the years. It's kind of like the Emmys for this kind of business, and we appreciate it very much. And here we are today in the mid-2000s, 2015 to present, and we've moved out of all this old hardware-based video conferencing systems into what I call the app-based world of video conferencing, where we've got things like Skype, Microsoft Teams, Google Meets, all these flavors of connectivity available to us these days. And we use all of them. So if there's anything out there that you want us to try, we'll give it a shot. We like to say that we connect by whatever technological means are necessary. So where do we do this? Well, you saw the studio. That's one of the places that we connect out of. Here's another behind the scenes look at this. This is when we got a chance to partner up with the group from PBS, the Sci Girls. They came out and did an episode with our shark and ray researchers, and some wonderful Sci Girls who helped them out with their research. And we delivered a live stream out of that program. And so here I am in the back end. But we also are now able to break out of the studio and into our exhibit space using some newer pandemic-inspired mobile technology. We've got this little kit now called a Padcaster. It's an iPad-based video conferencing system, really rugged but very portable, and allows us to get up and out of the studio, and it takes us to, where do we go, Ross? Where are you coming from in this video?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that introduction, Jason. Yes, so one of the really exciting pieces of information that we're able to provide is that using this Padcaster, we're able to get out of the studio and actually present to classrooms, internationally, domestically, all throughout the aquarium. Now, we're actually connecting to our shark habitat here at our aquarium. Now, the neat thing about Mote Marine Laboratory is not only are we a world-famous scientific institution, but we're also a public aquarium. Now, because of the pandemic, we did have to close for temporarily to the general public. However, we never stopped providing virtual learning content. And by having this Padcaster technology, we were able to broadcast our live shark feeding and training sessions that take place 3 times a week from actually the top of the shark studio and the shark exhibit. Now, the really neat thing about our shark habitat is that it's our 135,000 gallon shark habitat, and we feed these animals 3 times a week. Now, through this program, we're able to talk about zoology, animal training, animal behavior, and different types of marine careers, and what it's like to be a scientist here at Mote. Now, as you can see from that recording, we actually use targets as well. So one of the really interesting parts about Mote Marine Laboratory is that because we are associated with the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, we do follow animal handling and animal training protocols. So positive reinforcement, veterinary behaviors, and by bringing these connections virtually to these exhibits, we're able to not only just talk about how cool sharks are with kids and all the just general marine biology awesomeness, but we're also able to make those connections to how we work with these animals, and that we don't teach them tricks, but instead we provide them with scientific enrichment. So we like to say that we reach audiences K to gray. So kindergarten all the way up to senior homes. We are able to provide and adjust and adapt this content to pretty much anyone who just wants to learn more about the ocean. So we want to see yourself in science. Now, considering that we also have these mobile technologies, we are able to connect with a lot of our scientists out in the field as well. So what you're looking at right now is we do have marine scientists that connect from their research vessels. One prime example is Dr. Bob Huter. Now, he also is a senior scientist not only at Mote Marine Laboratory, but at OSearch, which is this organization that goes out and essentially tracks and tags and monitors some of the biggest sharks in the oceans, whether they're great white sharks, tiger sharks, great hammerheads, whale sharks. I mean, they are working with some amazing field science. And that's some of the coolest stuff out there. And by using these virtual connection technologies, we're able to actually connect to these scientists while they're on these research missions and say, what are you up to? Tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be a day in the life of a shark field biologist. Now, speaking of being able to make connections with a lot of these amazing scientists, we just want to highlight different variety of scientists, whether they're marine scientists or not. For example, just 2 weeks ago, we were able to put on this wonderful presentation, this week-long program highlighting women in STEM careers. So to celebrate International Women's Day, we were able to provide these marine science, almost television show-like content, where we were able to bring in tons of different scientists, one different female scientist a day for an entire week, that streamed out to over 900 participants, which is amazing to think about, both United States audiences and international audiences. Now, this was kind of a continuation from a program that we launched 2 summers ago, believe it or not, and this was called the MOTE Sea Show. So it was kind of our original Padcaster. Before we got our Padcaster itself, we had kind of this Frankenstein clunky mobile studio that we wheeled all around Mote Marine Laboratory to actually meet the scientists in their spaces and kind of lift the curtain on what goes on behind the scenes. So what you're looking at right now is a program that we connected to regarding our eagle ray and our spotted eagle ray, our stingrays and shark scientists, and how they actually track and tag and monitor these animals. And we did it right in their own backyard, that we were able to connect right from our stingray exhibit in our aquarium. So whether it's the Women in STEMs program or these mobile Padcaster programs, we really want students or adults who are just interested to see what it's like to be a marine biologist and some of the cool science that we're doing here at Mote. Now, speaking of some of the more in-studio programs, so some of the really essential programs that we offer, so not only do we offer those kind of one-off, almost television show-like webinar programs, but we also offer just quality content that's bookable almost as a virtual field trip. So one of the amazing pieces of technology that we utilize in pretty much all our programs are our animal cams. So our animal cams, as what you just saw, is our manatee cam. So we have a shark cam, a manatee cam, and a river otter cam. And we are able to connect and provide these viewing experiences to the students who are connecting. So we have a mammal program that highlights manatees, what is a marine mammal, and we connect to that live manatee cam that you can also visit on mote.org/animalcams. And we also are able to connect to our shark habitats using underwater cameras as well as our river otters. Now, for our virtual field trip programs, what I'm set up for right now is actually our sea turtle program. Now, our sea turtle program is one of our most popular programs, and we are able to bring science and technology to these students. So whether it's using these webcams or not, or using just the STEM programming, that's one of our main claims to fame. So our science programs are regulated through Common Core, next generation science standards. So not only are we providing these virtual field trips, but I mean, they're learning things too. So in case you aren't able to get to our aquarium in person down in Sarasota, Florida, we're able to make sure that we provide these educational and entertaining marine career field trips. Now, we do have them adjustable based on age. So whether you're a kindergarten teacher or a 12th grade teacher, these programs are pretty flexible. We can just water down the science, pun intended, depending on who is participating. So we just connected to some high schoolers the other week about coral science. They were in a unit on climate change and ocean acidification. So we were able to kind of like crank up the science regarding marine chemistry or geology or more of those human implications on marine environments versus also providing story times as well. So one of the amazing pieces of technology that we use is a green screen where we almost set up like a Blue's Clues style education program where I get to jump inside of storybooks, interact with cartoon characters, and do more of just reading comprehension, counting, and then some more general information about like what is a habitat, what makes a fish. So just kind of intro to biology, but more just shapes and numbers and almost Sesame Street-like quality.
And speaking of technology, how are we going to make this all happen? Like I said, it's very easy to do. Before the pandemic, of course, when we were connecting to classrooms, we would connect to a classroom with a computer and recommend that you have a very large screen television or projector. But of course, we're doing it now this way. We have hybrid models as well as direct connections. So we can connect up to 100 students at a time with no problem. And again, we'll use whatever technology is necessary. And if you want to find out how or what kind of programs we have, we partner with a group called the Center for Interactive Learning and Collaboration, CILC.org. Go ahead and write that down, and of course we'll send that link to you and the follow-up notes as well. And this is where you'll find the full catalog of content from Mote Marine Laboratory, and not just us, but a lot of other zoos, museums, and aquariums that offer content like that. But let's go ahead and let's give you a cool demonstration of this technology with our sea turtle program. So we're going to take a moment here. We're going to reset some things and introduce a special guest for you. And so just give us one moment here and we will get a sea turtle program demonstration ready for you. So stand by. While we're waiting and getting set up, if you have any questions that you want to throw into the chat space, now would be a great time to do that.
All right, so the sea turtle program we offer here is called Reptilian Millions, and it's a virtual turtle program. Now, one of the most popular programs that we offer here is our sea turtle program because unlike our manatee program or our shark program where we're only able to connect using those animal cams, those animal webcams, we actually have some live animals for this program. So we are joined by a celebrity guest right here. So this is Sam, the box turtle. Now, throughout this program, we teach about kind of comparative anatomy, about land turtles versus marine turtles, and what makes a reptile, and what are some of the challenges that sea turtles face, and what are some conservation success stories. So we start every single program off by introducing Sam or some of our other reptiles that we have here, such as diamondback terrapins. And we do a compare and contrast because many students that we connect with may have never seen a sea turtle, whether it's at the beach or at a zoo or aquarium, but odds are they're familiar with other types of turtles, more standard turtle-looking turtles like Sam here. So we start off by assessing general knowledge and primary background information to see what they observe. So the fact that they have shells, the fact they have scales, the fact they have beaks. So what are some characteristics that make a turtle, and what can we apply as those characteristics to what makes a reptile a reptile? So after they get to see Sam, then we bring it over to this really exciting, almost video game style quiz show. So we make sure that every single program we offer here at Mote Marine Laboratory isn't just a webinar or a lecture, but rather it's very interactive, very engaging, whether it's science demonstrations like in our shark program where we provide buoyancy demos and other live science experiments, or programs like our manatee or sea turtle programs where we actually have almost like a Jeopardy! Who Wants to Be a Millionaire quiz show style format. Now, this allows our students to interact with me. I make sure that we start every single program by asking, what do you already know about this conversation? Or what are some misconceptions? Like, what are some facts versus myths? So we actually have a sea turtle segment we're actually going to play for you where we're going to be able to pull up what it's like to interact with these interactive video games and these quiz show style learning. So we are going to pull up that information. Now, here we go. So here comes Reptilian Millions. Awesome. So now that we've met Sam the box turtle, and before we meet some sea turtles, we gotta understand what makes a reptile in the first place. So we see what of these categories and qualifications makes a reptile so unique. Now there are 8 different categories on your screen, however only 4 of them are correct. So these students get to either type into the chat if it's multiple participants or if it's just one classroom. We normally raise like a silent hand, the teacher can call on them, and then we can ask them from there. So they get to pick these individual characteristics and categories. So scales, of course. So what makes a reptile? Well, they have scales. Now, in particular, not only do we highlight what makes a reptile so unique, but we always bring it back to sea turtles because that is the overarching theme of this lesson. So then we talk about how sea turtles have very specialized scales, how sea turtles have very specialized shells in general, that we use a lot of the science vocabulary, and then we also do a lot of the comparative anatomy. So understanding what makes a vertebrate, what makes backbones so unique. And then we consistently bring back land turtles to sea turtles, making those reptilian characteristic comparisons. Now, generally this program is geared towards a bit of an older audience, maybe like 4th grade and up. However, never say never. We can always make it enjoyable for any age. However, we do offer some very targeted lessons for younger audiences. Now, in addition to being able to adjust all of these programs, we also have interactive videos as well, because Mote scientists are doing some awesome things, and we want to make sure that we're not just teaching about the animals, but we're also showing these marine careers. So we always bring in this Sea Turtle Patrol. Now, the Sea Turtle Patrol is a group of volunteers and scientists that we have here at Mote Marine Laboratory that essentially go out and excavate sea turtle nests so we can better understand what species are out on our local beaches. We understand how many eggs they're laying. We get to do comparisons from previous years, and all throughout this video and the multiple videos we use during these programs, I'm narrating over them and students are able to see what it's like to be a sea turtle scientist in real life. Plus, oh my gosh, those sea turtle hatchlings, those little babies are the cutest thing in the world, right? Now, these sea turtle hatchlings, once they are successfully brought from the nest, we always talk about how the fact that some eggs were never even fertilized in the first place, some eggs successfully hatched, and for the hatchlings that did successfully hatch but not make it out to the ocean, they are brought back with the scientists to Mote Marine Laboratory, which is always our conservation plug. because we're not only doing research, but we're also doing conservation science to make sure that these species are successful out in the world. So we're able to see what it's like behind the scenes here at our Sea Turtle Hospital. So it's always really fun to see how young a lot of our staff is as well. So it's really inspiring to these students that they can be interns, whether they're high school or college interns, and actually have hands-on applications to real science. Now, after we've measured and weighed these sea turtles, we always release them back out to the same beaches. So we're making sure that we're doing everything we can to make these animals as successful as possible. Now, we also have some more fancy videos where we get to actually have interviews with the scientists. They get to tell us a little bit more about what they're doing, and they're letting us know that without their support and their research, none of these animals would have made it back out into the ocean. So we'll queue up one of those for you right now.
Keeping track of the health of our animals and our local environment is hugely important, not only for the animals, but it has a human impact as well.
We work closely to respond to animals that are in distress or that find themselves beached.
Well, all the species we work with are great indicator species. Our turtles, our dolphins, our whales, they're on the front line. So if we start seeing issues with them and their environment, it's just a matter of time before it's starting to affect humans.
MOTE is one of those institutions that's well known in the conservation world. So our rehabilitation hospital, our main goal is to get those animals that come into us back out so they can then be a productive part of the population out in the wild. A lot of what we do is supportive care. We also do surgical procedures as we have to take very subtle cues from these animals. It's a big team effort here to get these animals healthy again and get them back out into the oceans.
People have come to expect MOTE to do this. Not only are we doing a service for the community, but also for these animals that we think are really, really important.
Any animal that's here would never have made it back out to the wild had we not helped.
We have an opportunity here to really make a difference, doing everything we can to help with the health of the oceans.
How inspirational was that, right? I mean, it's so amazing to see what our scientists are up to just down the street. So we always make sure that we want to use contemporary marine science and contemporary conservation efforts. Now, a lot of the students we connect to always wonder, what can they do in order to make a difference? Well, at the end of every single program, we challenge them to share one new thing they learned with someone who wasn't with us in today's program. Because the more you share about a topic, the more they care about topics. And then it's really fun to empower those students, to arm them with knowledge, and then to send them out as ambassadors for these species. Now, we always make sure that we bring conservation messages that they are realistic for students, and no matter what age they are. So whether it's just reusing and refusing plastic bags and their trash usage, recycling, reduce, reuse, recycle, but we also hit sustainable seafood a lot, that a lot of people love to eat seafood. So we always want to plug Seafood Watch, which is a nice little cheat sheet to let you know which seafoods you should eat, which seafoods you shouldn't eat. So whether you're going to a grocery store or a restaurant, just making informed consumer choices is a great way to empower students, because a lot of the main conservation efforts are above their head. However, they can make smart seafood choices or just smart consumer choices and actually make a positive difference. So we always want to make sure we're empowering our audiences. Now, before we move on to our next topic, to talk a little bit more about our youth programs, I want to make sure, I've been talking for a while now. Do we have any questions so far in the chat? I did see one that says, do we work with the Brevard County Sea Turtle programs? Kind of, sort of, yes and no. So we don't directly work with them, but we're all colleagues. So there's always that overflow capacity. For example, some of our colleagues up in Cape Cod just sent us some sea turtles, and as well as Texas. So whether it's Massachusetts or the Gulf of Mexico, our colleagues are always sending us extra sea turtles. We have a pretty state-of-the-art sea turtle hospital, and a lot of our partners just don't have enough space in their research facilities to account for all of the sea turtles that need help. So we're helping our colleagues all around. So as far as specific Brevard County stories, not that I'm aware of, but never say never. any other questions so far? Let's see. No, we're good? All right, sweet. So let me know if any other questions come up. Oh, let's see. Do you have internships for students? Absolutely. At MOTE, 100%. So nonprofit life, we definitely love that volunteer support. We definitely love that internship support. So as far as internships go, yes, we actually have high school internships, college internships, and even paid internships. Granted, those are much more competitive. Now, the interesting part is we have what are known as REUs, which are research experience internships, where these students actually get to do the hands-on science along with our scientists, whether it's tracking and tagging these animals, whether it's doing chemistry in the labs. So yes, there are lots of marine science internship opportunities here at MOTE. However, we also have internship opportunities in the education department as well. So if there's any students that are interested in lighting or sound or technology or being on camera, then they can work with me. So, I mean, I think I have the best job here at MOTE, that I get to work with the scientists, the students, the educators, so it's kind of the jack of all trades. So if you have any marine science passionate but also theater major-esque people, then yes, we actually do have some awesome virtual learning internships as well. All right. Yes, no, that was a wonderful question. Now, we're speaking of some other wonderful opportunities we have here. So these sea turtle programs are cranked up a little bit more for a little older level audiences. However, we have some amazing programs for the little kiddos as well. Now, one of the most popular programs we have are called See Me Reads. Now, this is a commercial that we actually have for one of our most popular See Me Reads called Shark Baby, where it's more of an introduction to habitats, it's an introduction to different species, and then the main takeaway is comparing and contrasting. So in this particular story, as you notice, I'm actually inside of the book. So it's very Blue's Cluesy, where we actually have a green screen and I get to interact with those cartoons, as I mentioned earlier, and we get to do a lot of comparisons between the cartoon animals and their live counterparts, as well as understanding just general geography and biology. Now, the main takeaway with this program is we really want to do comparisons and contrasts. And so throughout this program, we're learning about different animal eggs, what different shapes they are, what they look like, and the habitats that these eggs can be found. So we're understanding what makes a fish, what makes a reptile, and then at the end of every single program, after we have comprehension questions, we always relate it back to what the students can do to make a positive impact on their local habitat. So this is a good example of, this is our footage of our green screen. Now we are able to essentially superimpose me onto these cartoons and these storybooks. Now, whether it's Shark Baby, whether it's a See Me Read program, we also have some other ones on crabs, sharks, dolphins. So there's lots of different programs we have geared towards any range of audience. So those See Me Read programs are generally geared towards younger students, but we also work with older, more special needs individuals, and we use those level programs for them as well. Awesome. Now, as far as audience engagement goes, one of the other really amazing tools and websites that we've partnered with is our Flipgrid page. Now, we use Flipgrid as almost a video pen pal relationship. It's like a video voicemail service. So at the end of every program, there's always more questions than we have time to answer. So we direct the students and the teachers to join us on our Flipgrid website, where they can leave us a free video question, and we respond with a personalized video answer. So marine science pen pals, no matter where they are in the world. Now, in addition to these Flipgrid pages, we also link a lot of resources, worksheets, learning guides, and take-home labs and demos. So even after the lesson is done, the learning can still continue.
All right, and then one more resource we wanted to share with you is from our colleague Brad Tanner. He is a fantastic educator who's been working with us for years, and we've started to explore the use of Google Classroom resources and materials, and this is both for you as potential teachers as well as your students. We have topics on our blue hole research. Blue holes are these really crazy deep water habitats off the Gulf of Mexico, where our divers go down into these basically underwater sinkholes and research the geology, chemistry, and biology of these unique habitats. And we have lesson plans available for elementary and middle school, as well as high school for our blue hole research. We've got topics on coral health and disease, ocean acidification, Brad Tanner will make those available to you. That's going to be in the follow-up materials. We'll have the links to the classroom codes. And of course, we wouldn't be a lab with and an aquarium without various camps. We do have some limited socially distanced camp opportunities coming up here this summer. In a normal year, we actually have residence camps down in the Florida Keys at our satellite campus in Summerlin Key. We also have lifelong learning opportunities, both our in-house program as well as a partnership with the University of Florida with the Florida Master Naturalist Program. And they are normally an experiential program where you would go out into the field and come into the classroom. But during these pandemic times, we do have virtual opportunities with the Master Naturalist. And so that's kind of the extent of our presentation. And Ross and I are going to be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have about our programs, about distance learning in general. And we'll be happy to hear what you have to say. So we'll take the time for questions now.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. What a great presentation. Also super impressed with the resources that you have. Because we've worked with who have I worked with? Sorry, now I can't remember. One of our partners out in California is the Monterey Bay Research Science Aquarium, and they're awesome, but they have a totally different angle on marine science because theirs is much more of the, they're really into data. And
Yes,
sharing that
and
data.
Bari, are you speaking of?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's funny. That's where I used to work there.
Oh, I'm so jealous. Did you work with George?
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
Oh, George is the best.
Matsumoto, correct?
Yeah.
Yes,
George
yeah,
Matsumoto
absolutely.
is awesome. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, but I think it's really interesting to see just a different spin on that marine science piece because they're really focused on a lot of data points and
Right.
collecting that data and putting it into formats that are usable for teachers to try to do.
Absolutely. Plus, they have access to the deep sea, right there. So things.
Yeah, and all of their very fancy equipment.
Yeah. Oh, the Packards.
Wildly fancy equipment. But actually, and now this is making me think that when we put some resources together, I should probably head over to their site too, just try to see if there's anything that matches up for people. And actually, that was my question, and I couldn't remember the actual name about the sea turtle group, because we've actually worked with Kate Mansfield with the Marine Turtle Research Group with the University of Central Florida, and I don't know if you've ever done any work with her, because she does research.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I mean, honestly, we are getting postdocs and veterinarians constantly. So we're kind of a learning hub. So a lot of our postdoc fellowships last around 2 to 4 years, give or take, and then they complete their science, and then we get a brand new scientist coming in, which is really great for our education programs because we're able to use continuing science, and everything is continuously evolving. So we bring in all these new individuals doing all this new cutting-edge research, but we still have access to all of the research of the scientists who have since left. So everything is continuously growing here, but we have a great archival library.
Yeah, no, because it was funny to see the volunteers digging out some of those turtle nests and tracking them, because she also gets a bunch of volunteers together to do that on the Brevard County side.
Nice.
On that protected coast. Which also, I mean, if you ever want to connect with her, I'm sure she'd be very happy to share data and whatnot with you, because she's also trying to get that out. And then I guess what kind of because I saw you guys putting on the tracker to a sea turtle.
Right.
I guess what are you doing with that?
That is a great question. Absolutely. So one of the cool things that we have with our sea turtle, so we use 2 different main tracking resources. So if you notice on the front flipper of this sea turtle, you almost see a little earring almost on it. So that is just a metal tag in case the sea turtle ever gets recaptured by a different scientist down the road. There's a specialized little code on that, and they enter into this global database saying, oh, the sea turtle was tagged in Mexico and then recaptured in Australia or something. So it's almost like a continuous library point versus the little backpack you see being attached here is attached using caulking. Basically, it doesn't hurt the sea turtle at all. It generously lasts around 2 years, fingers crossed, but the sea turtles often just scratch them off or itch them off. I mean, it doesn't hurt them or anything, but they don't want it to stay on as long as we want it to stay on. Now, the cool thing about our sea turtle programs is that we use cutting edge data. If you go to mote.org, you actually do see histories and tracking logs of our sea turtles before that satellite tag popped off around 1 to 2 years. Now, in addition to those sea turtle tracking tags, we also partner with that OSearch group that I mentioned earlier. Now, the OSearch group has some awesome virtual learning opportunities as well. They have some really great resources, great STEM kits that they connect using with teachers, but one of the awesome partnerships that we work with them on is their live shark GPS page. So what you're looking at right now is if you go to their website and or their Twitter, they actually create Twitter handles for every single shark. They actually has a satellite tracking tag attached to it. So you can see them as they move throughout the global oceans, which is the coolest thing. And then you can see that these sharks are tweeting their location about, oh, just past Madagascar on my way to British Columbia. Like, it's just the neatest thing. So we use a lot of those programs because a lot of our scientists are on those shark research vessels, so we're able to collaborate with them. They provide some great STEM opportunities, and then we're able to broadcast their live science in action.
Awesome. And then actually we have another question about that.
Yeah.
So apart from location, what other are you collecting any other data?
Yes, absolutely. So the funny thing about sharks is even though they're one of the most popular animals just in the world, they're still very mysterious. I mean, great white sharks are a great example of this, that everyone loves great white sharks, but we still actually don't know that much about them. Like, for example, we have actually never seen any footage to this day of a great white shark giving birth, for example. So there's like all these weird mysteries that we've never seen a great white shark mating. So all of these interesting things that we're trying to shed light on. So one of the really amazing parts of OSearch that we actually have video footage and photo footage of is that they are essentially the NASCAR pit crew of shark science, where they have converted this gigantic research vessel into this almost loading bay. You can see it in the photo here. And they scoop up a shark. They do an entire comprehensive lab diagnostic within about 10 minutes on this shark. So blood samples, skin samples, tooth samples, parasite samples, urine samples, blood samples, eye samples. I mean, like, they are just doing scale samples, you name it. And then at the very end, they attach like 14 different tagging devices, whether it's a satellite tracking tag, whether it's this little red one that you see on there, which is called an accelerometer, which actually monitors how these animals are moving through the water. Interestingly enough, it's actually the same piece of technology in your cell phone that changes the orientation of the screen to let you know if it's portrait mode or landscape mode. So that's actually one of the units that we have in our shark science lesson is we ask the students, have you ever used an accelerometer before? And they're like, no, never. And then, have you ever used a smartphone or a tablet? And they're like, of course. Well, the way that the screen is oriented is exactly what the accelerometer is in your phone versus what it is on a shark. Because you can learn so much about a shark just by how it's moving through the water. You can tell if it's hunting, you can tell if it's mating, you can tell if it's giving birth, and then you can kind of collect all of that data. And if you notice that all of these sharks are showing birthing behaviors in these same waters, odds are that water is a nursery for a shark, and hey, we should probably protect that water because that's where all the baby sharks are. So it's this really cool science and conservation plug all geared around STEM, technology, and engineering. So it's very comprehensive. We bring in the policy component along with the science. So every single lesson 80% of our lessons are very sciencey, but we also have geology, geography, conservation policies, and politics. So for all of the English majors out there, all the history majors, all the social studies majors who still like the ocean, we make sure that we relate it back to the fact that if you like the ocean and legislature, like, we need marine policy lawmakers. So lots of different ways to interconnect all of this science.
Awesome. And well, I guess one more question. What do you consider to be the most, I guess, like, mysterious or like shark, or like which least researched? Like, what's the one that's most we don't like know? We don't have a lot on.
That is a really great question. So the really funny thing about sharks is there are over 500 species of sharks that live in the oceans all around the world, and we actually don't know how many the number truly is, because we are still discovering sharks to this day. Now, the funny thing about these sharks is that most of the sharks that we discover that we have never uncovered before live at the very bottom of the ocean. Now, unfortunately, sharks have this really bad reputation of being these big, savage, bloodthirsty, frenzy-feeding killers. Well, it turns out that out of the 500 species of sharks, 80% of these sharks could not hurt you even if they tried. For example, this cutie right here is called a pocket shark. This is a full-grown adult. as a full-grown adult, it only gets to about the size of your palm, so it literally could fit in your pocket. It is a very deep-sea species of shark. 80% of all sharks not only couldn't hurt you, but 80% of all sharks are less than 5 feet long. So we like to think that sharks are these big, mysterious, monstrous killers, and most of them eat snails or really small fishes. So we really want to dispel any myths and misconceptions around sharks. One of our most popular programs is actually a quiz show Jeopardy-style program called Sharks Facts versus Myth, where we essentially myth bust all of these shark science facts, and we provide the students as a takeaway message to then act as mythbusters themselves. So as far as mysterious sharks go, one of our favorite things to highlight is that we don't know how many sharks there are, so the students out there can grow up and who knows, they might discover a new shark themselves.
Awesome. No, that's an excellent answer. And by the way, you're great at this. So
Thanks. Appreciate it.
You know, from someone who also has to stand here sometimes and like talk to blank screens.
Thanks.
And I will do a last call for any more questions, if there are any. I'll watch my chat here. All right, I guess there are not. So thank you so very much. I'm so thrilled to share this with all of our teachers. So many of our teachers, they live in coastal places. You know, marine science is something that they are required to teach. And I think this is a really fun, different version to bring, especially to, like I always joke, we do a lot of events in California, and, you know, marine science is huge out there. But I'm pretty sure teachers are looking maybe for a slightly different angle on it, or a different person. So I'm really excited to share all of this with a lot of our teachers who, you know, are already, you know, like just a different type of resource for them to access. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, our pleasure. Thanks so much for connecting with us today.
Awesome, wonderful. All right, and so next up,
Oh, very nice. Very nice.